Hello, and welcome to the Music Survival Guide, the independent musician's guide on how to survive the music industry. My name is Phil, a mixing engineer. Hope you're doing wonderfully well this week and keeping safe and enjoying life. Here we are, well into the year, into June. So, it's a good time to take stock and think, how are you doing? How's the year going? How's your music going? Things like that. So it's a good idea to do that. But that's not really what I'm here to talk about. This week, I'm here to talk about being unique. And I guess in that, it's also like finding your unique voice, why it matters, how to do it, that kind of thing. So I want to talk first about why it matters. So if you think about the music industry nowadays, and, it's everything from, biggest acts in the world down to your local little scene and things like that. It's a very saturated market. The democratization of music distribution with things like Spotify and other streaming services and things like that is wonderful. Do not get me wrong. It is wonderful for bands to be able to get their music out there so easily, but that means that so many more bands and artists are doing it. So you need to think quite logically that it's a saturated market. There's a lot of people doing this. So how do you stand out? How do you differentiate yourself from the crowd? And the thing you need to think is, what you're doing right now, is it based off what someone else is doing? And if so, why? Like, what's the point of doing that? Why do you want to copy someone else's, identity in that way to make it your own? Why not try and find and do your own thing? So I guess what I want to talk about is what makes you unique? How do you do that? And to some extent, I think you will know what that looks like for you. But if you're not sure, you just various things to think through. Are you using the same, for example, tools and equipment as everyone else? So if you're a guitarist, are you using, if you're a metal band, I'm going to call you out here, are you using something like a Les Paul or anyway some kind of humbucker guitar into a 5150, possibly with a Mesa cab? If you are, it's a great sound. So, I understand why people do it. Please don't mishear me. But if you're doing that, why not? It's just a very small way, but differentiate yourself by choosing something different. Shocking, controversial, I know. But that way, especially on your local scene, if everyone is using the same amp or the same model on your local scene, choose something different. Choose to be different. Why? Because you will stand out. You'll stand out sonically, and then you'll therefore stand out kind of visually as well. Whether you think about your amp or your modeler, if it looks different to what everyone else has got, people might sit up and pay attention. It's just one of those little kind of differentiators. You've also got your kind of sonic identity, I guess. So your musical DNA. What does that look like for you? So I think the best way to start, if you're not sure, especially if you're a new band, is to sit down with all the band members and go, what are your influences? Write down, I don't know, your top 5-10 influences musically, but maybe also as a musician, because they can be separate things, and compare them. So where they overlap, that's obviously where you're most likely to start to copy without necessarily thinking about it, maybe where you start to do. And the thing you've got to look at is, where are your unique influences? So where's someone got a kind of very offhand influence on bass, for example, or a really offhand drum influence, and how can you bring that in? Because most sonic creations nowadays that are unique, let me put it that way, is a blend of genres, a blend of styles, and bringing together the best of various bits and pieces to make something unique. That's cool, and that can be difficult to work out. Don't get me wrong, it can be difficult to work out, but if you can bring in those unique influences into your playing and therefore into your songwriting and into your music, it's gonna help you stand out. Now, please don't mishear me. You fundamentally need to write some good music that people like and remember. So that is really, really important. But I think working out which ways you stand out in a small way and sometimes in a big way, whatever it may be, working those things out is really important, and it's really, really, really fun, actually, if you let it be fun. So you need to kind of start to go down that trail and work that out for yourself. I think another way to think about it is your visual uniqueness. In what way or ways do you visually stand out from those around you? So, for example, the last interview I did, Ben from the Heavy Souls, he does a unique custom piece of art for every gig they do, for every gig poster they do, and therefore it just is unique. It's just a little kind of signifier of the band, I guess, that he'll have a unique kind of art style that he does, and brings the band into that, and brings kind of the listener into that, where they can go, look, here's the particular poster of the gig I went to and saw them, that kind of thing. That is a very small but important way of distinguishing yourself. I think social media is wonderful, don't get me wrong. Social media is very wonderful for communicating with your audience and finding your audience, but the difficulty of it is that loads of bands are using it, as you'll know, and loads of bands are getting involved. And the problem with that is that the more bands who are doing the same thing, like, look, I gigged on this week, that kind of thing, the less you're going to stand out. So how can you stand out in this crowded market on social media? What can you do to grab attention? You know, that's really important. You've got to do it in a way that is unique and authentic to you. If you are just faking it, if you are just doing something because you think, oh, you know, this will be great, but my heart's not really in it, that's not a good way to go. Work out what your heart is in, lean into that really, really, really heavily. When it comes to being unique, sonically, visually, things like that, don't chase trends. Don't just kind of look around, say on the kind of latest releases in your genre and go, look, everyone's doing this, let's do this. Don't do that. Don't do that, because you will sound like everyone else. If you want to sound unique, run away from that. Do something different. Maybe even do something completely opposite, whatever that looks like for you. And that way you are going to stand out, because you need to find out what you want to do. And what you want to do, I can pretty much assure you, unless you're in a cover band, which is totally legitimate, what you want to do is not sound like other bands and artists. You want to sound unique. And I know in everyone's head they sound unique, but a lot of people just take influence from other bands and go, cool, that's us, we're sorted. Find your unique voice and lean into it. To use a cheesy phrase, uniqueness comes from within. It does not come from without, what other bands are doing, what other artists are doing. Find it within yourself and go for it. Really important to do this. And once you work out what you are and what you're doing, let's say in visual style or in musical style, lean into it. Be consistent in your style once you kind of know it and understand it. Now, obviously, in music, when you're doing the music side of things, there's very much room to push and to redefine what you're doing as you go along. Don't get me wrong, please don't get stuck in a rut, although that does work for some bands. But certainly with visuals and things like that, once you know your style, stick to it. Be consistent. Being consistent is really important. Being consistent is really important in all sorts of things, and I think a lot of bands don't really think about it enough. Obviously, be consistent in how much you post on social media. I harp on about that often enough. But you've got to be consistent in things like putting out music. You've got to be quite regular with that, really. Doing gigs. I know life is quite busy for a lot of people, but you've got to be regular in doing gigs. However much or little you do gigs, try and be regular about it. In terms of putting out your social media as well, in terms of things like rehearsals, it's all just got to be regular. It's got to be part of the framework of what you're doing, and that way people will see what you're doing regularly or hear what you're doing regularly and go, cool, I know who that is. I recognize that style. I recognize this thing. It's turned up in my feed or in my Spotify or at my gig venue of choice at the time I expect them to arrive. And so let's go and enjoy it. That's going to help as well. That's a really important thing to think about. Being consistent once you've worked out what you're being consistent in. Really, really important. So that's all I had to say on the matter, really. I'm sure there's a whole discussion. If you're interested in having a discussion, please do drop me a message on social media. I'd love to chat about this kind of stuff. I'm a big nerd for this kind of thing, really. So thank you for listening to another episode of the Music Survival Guide. If you liked it, please rate and review the podcast wherever you listen. All helps the algorithm, of course. Please also share it with any friends and bandmates if you thought it was useful or even interesting. Finally, if you're thinking about recording or mixing and you want to talk about it, feel free to reach out to me via the links in the podcast description below. We can have a chat about it, and I will see you next time.